I don't mind the fantasy genre. I'm actually getting into writing some dark fantasy. But there are some parts to the fantasy genre that I do not like. I don't like the type of fantasy that you could see in let's say, a kid's show. Example: five friends need to go on an adventure and find three gems to save their land from the Shadow King. Now, I'm not saying that stories written like this are all terrible. I'm just saying that they're not my thing. I'm also not a big fan of simple fantasy. I prefer to read and write fantasy that's detailed. Another example: the fantasy world has an origin, its own magic system, its own species, etc. In my opinion, a fantasy world has to have a reason to exist. It has to have a reason why it's there. Fantasy, in my opinion, needs a reason. A reason to be told, a reason to exist, and a reason to be enjoyable. When I think of fantasy, I don't think of high tech or anything extremely overpowered. When I picture fantasy, I picture this. Looks kinda like the real world, but set in medieval time. No technology, dirt roads, small houses made of logs, and people still ride horses. But with a sprinkle of fantasy. There are no humans, but elves and fairies, and maybe some completely new species as well. Some people have magic, but are not too overpowered. But there is also some types of fantasy that I love, like dark fantasy, low fantasy, high/epic fantasy, and magic realism. But there are some cases when I don't even like those types of fantasy. For me, it really depends on how it's written and how extravagant some of the ideas of fantasy are. Well, that's really all I have for you all today. What do you guys think of the fantasy genre? I know it's a very popular genre. Thank you all who made it this far in the video. I appreciate your support. Until next time!